Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I am Raphael and I am here to review season 10, episode 17, and the finale to the Real Housewives who are still in denial about a couple of things. Of Potomac. We start the finale off with all the videos that we saw of Karen making her own version of the Fast and the Furious movie while intoxicated, or at least according to her, she was on pills. Shh. But we'll get to that later. So then we flash forward to September of last year where we see the one and only, the Grand Drunk. She's being released from jail, and I know it's almost been a year at this point, but I cannot believe that Karen, the Karen Huger, was actually in jail. Like, Karen, what are you doing? Like, this is something I expected from Michael, Ashley Darby, Juan Dixon, Robin Dixon at this point, because he's gonna drag her down with him and she's just gonna willingly go. But you, the Queen of Surrey County? I am just shocked. But she ordered her Uber XL, to be there 15 minutes before her release. She gets in the car, she starts practicing her lines that she's gonna tell Andy later on in the interview, and that she's also gonna try to convince herself are true. So she's sitting there like, okay, so what are you gonna do if he asks you, are you an alcoholic? Well, you know what? I'm just gonna talk in circles for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then every now and then I'm gonna say, well, you know what? Let's talk about it, even though we're not really talking about anything. And I'm just gonna continue using that until he gets tired and he wants to go home and sleep. Perfect. I love that idea. Stick with that. Okay, so what are you gonna do if he asks you about your DUI from 20 years ago? What DUI? Perfect, exactly. You act clueless to everything. Exactly. Always deflect, okay, Karen? Perfect. You're ready for this interview. It was just so nice, first of all, to see a nice, luxurious house, for a change that wasn't belonging to Angel, right? Because I forgot how nice Karen's house was. Back inside, we see Ray. Aw, Ray. Hey, Ray, how are you? He's waking up from his afternoon nap. We see their daughter, Raven, and Karen's sister, Bridget. So Ray, he set up this beautiful presentation. And by presentation, I do use that word very, very loosely here. For Karen, the second that she comes in, right? The presentation being a 2x4 piece of white paper with the words, welcome home, printed on it against the wall. Karen comes in, her and Raven reunite, they're hugging each other. It was a beautiful moment. And I can only imagine how Raven felt, right? Because her and Karen, they're very close to each other. So to witness her mom's behavior in those videos from months ago, I know that wasn't easy to watch. So then we go from such a beautiful moment to a very cold and distant one because Karen goes over to Ray. It was just so dry and empty. Like, she walked up to him like, oh, hey, Ray, how are you? Okay, back up, not too much. Yeah, it was nice to see you again. We gotta talk about this later. Lovely weather we're having, right? And I'm like, where's the spark? Where's the passion? Where's the fire between both of you? Like, because if I'm coming home from jail, right, to my significant other, they better be ecstatic that I'm coming home. Like, you better pick me up, hug all over me, kiss me, lift me by my thighs, grab my ass cheeks, maybe slip a finger or two inside. So what if I didn't shower? That's true love, right? Psych, wait a minute. We gotta take a shower. We gotta take a shower or two first, but it was just so empty and it was just very boneless. I'm like, what is this? But whatever. So eventually, they're looking at Karen like, Karen, what's with the hair? Because she has her hair braided. So they sit down and she goes on to explain. Let me tell you something really quick, Raven. When I went into the jail cell the very first day, I didn't go in there as the Grand Dame. I went in there as myself, as Karen Huger. And I met these lovely women, these lovely ladies in their early 20s. I was beyond shocked that they were in there so young, and they really respected me. And on my very last day in the jail cell, they didn't want me to leave looking all raggedy, like Raggedy Robin. They wanted me to look fabulous, so they let me use their hair. And I really appreciate those lovely ladies, you know what I'm saying? And I can only imagine if Giselle was in her shoes and it was her last day in jail. She's looking around like, okay, does anybody want to help me look nice? Does anybody want to help me with their hair or anything like that? Fuck off, Giselle. We're Team Karen and Candace over here. I wonder if they'll be nice to Giselle in jail, but, this is where Karen loses me completely because she makes a quick left turn and she starts telling them, well, you know what? I was very shocked that these group of women that I've met in there, they were in their early 20s, and I just couldn't believe it because I was decades older than them, and, I just don't believe that they should have been in there. And, I know it's a very sensitive topic, and I don't want to sound like I'm judging, but I'm judging. But If I'm in the jail cell and I'm one of the 20-year-olds that Karen is talking about, and you're coming in here and you're trying to say, oh, why are you in here? You shouldn't be in here. Like, I kind of get it. Like, I suppose I kind of get it. But you're no better than me, bitch, in the words of Nene Leakes. Like, you're no better than me. I'm so sorry. There is no way some geriatric granny, I love you, Karen, that is coming in here after you've been parking your cars in the middle of trees. You're coming in here to tell me and like to basically point your finger like, why are you in here? You shouldn't be in here, trying to shame me when I'm probably just in here for like shoplifting or something stupid. That's like, nothing. It's not as serious as your situation. And you want to come in here as if you're like Mother Teresa or like you're better than somebody just because of your age? You could be 60, they could be 21, but guess what? You're both in the same place. So now what? And if anything, Karen, with age comes wisdom. Shouldn't you know better? So, I just don't understand how she's coming in there like, oh, you should know better. You shouldn't be in here. It took me decades to get in here. Like, it doesn't matter. You're still in there. I just feel like Karen, she has this way of being delusional and thinking, the whole Grand Dame thing, it really did get to her head, like I mentioned before. And I just really do think that she does not think that her situation is as serious. Or I feel like she's above her situation. And I don't know, I just feel like she's in denial about a couple of things. But, it was nice that they did help her out in jail. That's the type of sisterhood, love, bonding, trust. That's what I want. Karen goes upstairs to shower and get ready. Meanwhile, we get a knock at the door. It's the one and only Andy Cohen. Ray lets him in. Karen comes back down, and Karen looks like a whole different person. I'm like, damn, Karen, what kind of shower you took? She looks very rejuvenated. She looks good. And I like that flowy shirt dress that she had on. So her and Andy, they finally greet each other. They're hugging each other. Andy, he's so happy to see her. He's hugging her like, hey, Karen, it's really nice to see you. Karen, please come back to the show for season 11. Like, we can't do this anymore. Like, you should have seen how season 10 was. We just filmed the cast trip to Colorado. It was a complete shit show. Like, you should have seen. We try to replace you with this new girl named, I think her name is it Devil? No, it's Angel. Her name is Angel, and she was a complete flop. Yeah, I don't think that she's coming back next season. Like, you should have seen they were chewing her up every single episode. Yeah, there was no water at the Airbnb, nothing. And get this. The last episode that we filmed, it was at a gas station. Yeah, I know. If you were on the show, none of this would have happened. Karen, you need to come back. Karen lets him know that she received the letters that he wrote to her while she was in jail. And I'm just like, what in the favoritism is this, Andy Cohen? This sounds like an HR issue. Like, what do you mean you're writing letters to Karen as if it's some type of reward? All the other housewives in all the other cities, including Potomac, they're watching this like, oh, what? So I just have to drive my car into a tree to receive a letter from the producer? Like, that's what I got to do? Okay, noted. So then Andy, he tells her, oh, I sprayed it with a little perfume called La Dame in your honor. And I'm like, I guess we're forgetting the bigger picture of this whole situation, right? Okay. And Andy's much better than me because I would have been so shady with it. I would have told Karen, like, yeah, I sprayed it with this perfume called Gucci Guilty or something called Reckless by Victoria's Secret or Put the Drink Down by Versace. Are you catching the hint, Karen? But, eventually they give Andy a tour around the house. They go in the kitchen. They see Karen's son, which I completely forget that she has a son. He's never on camera. Andy was just like, how come you're always avoiding the cameras? So he was just like, well, why don't you mind your fucking business? Andy was just like, okay, noted, fine. So then they start talking about Karen and her time in jail. And again, Karen... Okay, but here we go, right? So Karen, she goes on to say, well, you know what, Andy, let's talk about it right now. Because, when I was in jail, I wasn't really counting down to when I was going to be free. I was just doing a bunch of programs and I met a couple of lovely people in there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, Karen, you of all people trying to be anybody's mentor in jail? Again, just like I said a second ago, Karen's coming in here thinking that she's holier than thou when your situation is fresh off the highway. Like, your car is barely out of the tree, but yet you're coming in here like as if you're Mother Teresa. Absolutely not. Again, I think Karen is in a huge denial here. Like, is it just me? Or am I in denial? Am I delusional? Because again, there's just no way that some lady that you just crashed a tree 2 seconds ago, you're coming in here trying to be my mentor. Where's the mentor for you? Like, you should be helping yourself out. Like, this is not some, willy-nilly thing that you just did 2 seconds ago. This is your 4th DUI. According to her, it's her second, but regardless whether it was 2, 3, or 4, 5, 6, whatever, no. So then eventually Andy was just like, okay, let's sit down for this interview. They sit down and here we go. So then Andy was just like, tell me about that night, about that, reckless night of you, the tree, the deer, and everything on the highway. Tell me about it. So Karen, she was just like, you know what, let's talk about it. That night, it was a very reckless night, but, it was a lot going on, Andy. If I'm being honest with you, I was going through a lot, and, I was just kind of spaced out, and I just didn't believe it was me in that video. You know what I'm saying? And it is, and no matter how you feel about Karen, it is insane to me that is the same person who was in that video saying all those crazy things and behaving that way. Like, I just never thought it would get like that with Karen specifically, because from day one, she was all about, etiquette and poise, and, she treated herself like, like royalty. And it was just, again, not everybody's perfect, but I get it. But damn, it was just so hard to see that. So then Karen, she continues on and on and on about her avoiding watching that video. She didn't want her children watching that video. She didn't let Ray watch that video. And we all remember what Ray was doing in that video with the whole purse situation. That whole purse. Ma'am, we need your ID. And Ray was just digging through that purse, that 2-inch purse, like as if it was a huge hole. So then Andy was just like, oh, really? Supposedly there was a plea deal or something like that. And Karen was just like, no, but you know what? Let's talk about it. No, there wasn't no plea deal. I just didn't really look at the video, and they told me that it was incriminating. You know what I'm saying, Andy? So she refused to watch the video, and then she also blames it on, well, I didn't watch it because I was still kind of intoxicated. But then here, is everybody ready? She doesn't blame the whole situation on the alcohol. No, she blames it on prescriptions, because Andy was just like, okay, so wait a minute. This whole situation, it was because you were feeling fuzzy in the head, you were feeling all lightheaded, you weren't really there, you were dizzy, but it was because you were drinking, right? Absolutely not, Andy. No, but let's talk about it. It was because of these prescriptions. I kept upping the dosage, and for a second, I really thought, because Andy was just looking at her like, wait, what? And then she repeated it. Prescriptions, yes. Wait, what? I really thought that he was going to say, huh? And she was going to say, it's more lifestyle. Joggers. She says that 20 years ago, her children and Ray felt like she needed help with something. So she went to the doctors. The doctor prescribed her medication. But Karen, over time, she kept upping the dosage of the medication, which kept making her foggy. She wasn't really there. She was dealing with a bunch of things internally. So then Andy asked her, wait, so was the cause of the car accident the medication, or were you drinking a lot, or what was going on? And Karen, she was just like, no, let me make that very clear. It was because of the medication. The drinking, I had a drink here and there, but it was because of the medication. I kept upping the dosage. And again, Andy was just looking at her like, wait a minute. Is it not because you were drunk? So now it's because you were basically high off medication. And he's just not understanding. And Karen, I feel like she somewhat almost got to the truth later on in the conversation, but I feel like she's in denial. And again, I feel like this whole interview was just way too soon, because I feel like Karen is not 100% ready to, label herself an alcoholic, if you will, just because maybe the stigma of having that title to you, she doesn't want, it's already bad, that the world has viewed her in the video and how she was, behaving in that video. So I feel like her pride won't let her do that, which is understandable, I suppose. But, but then we continue, because she says that night of the whole car accident, that the only reason why she was even in that type of mind frame to begin with was because she was running away from something. So Andy was just like, wait, what were you running away from? And Andy's so nosy, Andy's just like me when somebody's telling me some type of gossip. Like, please tell me more. Like, he's basically salivating. So was I, though. So then Karen, she finally comes out with it, and she was just like, well, I was running away from my home. I just felt like this home was a tomb. My children were gone. It was just me and Ray. We were still dealing with things. And I just feel like I lost myself. And I just wanted to feel something again. And, she goes on to say that she had emotionally stopped growing, I believe, when she was 19, because she was SA'd. And, that also comes with a bunch of trauma and, her mom passing. And, all of this is just one big, huge bubble of things. Just, bundling up inside and stuff, and the way she's dealing with it is just I understand what she's going through, but Oh, Karen. And then on top of that, the whole situation with Ray, just like I said earlier, I feel like they need to separate from each other. I don't want Ray to become a trigger to Karen. Like, I just feel like Karen and Ray have outgrown each other. I feel like Karen is just on a whole different atmosphere. And Ray, he just wants to like lay on his couch and eat a snack and ice his knees or something, and watch TV. So Andy was just like, you have 4 DUIs. Karen was quick to cut it off. She was just like, no, stop. Now, wait a minute, glasses. She was just like, well, actually, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, actually. No, let's talk about it. Because I don't have 4 DUIs. Let's talk about it really quick. The 2 situations that I had when I was younger, let's talk about it. It was because, some situation with alcohol, but it was never concluded with a DUI, Andy. Let's talk about it. It was never a DUI. Let's make that very clear. I only had 2 DUIs, as if that's any better. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Let me do the math because this is not making sense. So she said it's not a DUI, but it involves alcohol. And let me see, you carry the 2, but she says she only had 2 DUIs. And these incidents were from 20 years ago, so that doesn't really count. You carry the 4 minus 3 times, and then that leaves me with, what the fuck, Karen? Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, all of it is still bad. That is 4 situations. This is why the whole mentoring thing that she has going on, you can miss me with that. Like, absolutely not. Then she finally admits it because Andy was just like, wait, so it seems like you're taking ownership of the narcotic side of this whole situation, but not the alcohol side. Like, you want to tell me about that? Or like, do you label yourself as an alcoholic? And again, Karen, it's just too soon for her to even accept that, right? Which is understandable, I guess. But she kind of comes around with it because she was just like, let's be very clear really quick. Let's talk about it though. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I just feel like I'm a person in recovery for lifelong reasons. I'm a lifelong recovery person. Andy was just like, what the fuck is a recovery person? But he couldn't question her too much because I believe that he's staying in her guest room upstairs. So I feel like if he goes too far, she's going to kick him out the house and he's going to have no place to stay for the night, right? Karen kind of came around to it like, yeah, I'm not only an alcoholic, but I'm also, it's a mixture of things. It's alcohol and prescriptions, and it's just both, it's not one or the other. So I guess she kind of came around to it again. I just think it's too soon for her to admit that she's an alcoholic. Andy asked her, how was it being stripped completely in jail? And Karen mistook the question because next thing you know, she was just like, oh, well, I still had on my black lace panties covering this juicy ass and my black lace bra covering these luscious nipples with my hair coming down to the middle of my back. And Andy was just like, no, I mean metaphorically, like how was it emotionally? And Karen was just like, oh, it was fine actually. I thought you wanted to know. Okay, oh, you meant that. Oh, yeah, no, it was an interesting experience. I mean, Andy, you need to be a little bit more specific, but okay. So then Andy was just like, did you watch the reunion, the past reunion from last season? And Karen was just like, no, because I was in that rehab thing. I completely forgot that she was in that rehab thing. She was in there for like 5 seconds and all of a sudden now, she's changed and she's, okay, Karen. So then Andy was just like, oh, you haven't seen it? And Karen was just like, no, I haven't. I never seen it. And Andy was just like, oh, okay, well, I have it here on DVD. He pulls out the big ass laptop and he was just like, okay, we're going to press play. Ray, can you get us some snacks? Okay, Karen, move over here because Wendy and Ashley are about to be messy. He presses play and I'm like, wow, we're really watching a reunion like this. And Karen, she was just watching it. Ashley, specifically about the part where Ashley, she was on a train with somebody and they were like, oh, I actually know you're a cast member, Karen. She's always at this place, always getting drunk 24/7. And then Wendy, she admitted that, yeah, she heard the same thing, which I feel like there is some truth to that. And it's also funny how they kind of skated over the whole, how Karen was out that night with a bunch of friends, but nobody came out to say, yeah, I was with her that night. I don't know. And then how I believe that she said it too on the recording, or Ashley, somebody said it, that, she was also with somebody in the car when she crashed it. And I remember my speculation, my theory, when I made that video almost a year ago, I said that what if she was in the car with the blue-eyed guy that supposedly she's with, that Teresa that she's supposedly having an affair with, or open marriage, whatever. And what if he was in the car they crashed and she just took the fall for it, and he kind of just drove away, or he left. He left the scene just so she could take the fall, and here we are. I don't know, Karen. I don't know. At this point, I don't trust anybody on Potomac. Like Wendy, I thought I could trust you, and you broke my heart. Like, and my trust. Like, I thought I trusted Wendy the most out of anybody on this cast, and just for her to do me like this, fraud, Wendy, fraud. Like, but anyways, Karen, even with everything going on in her life, she was just like, well, you know what, Ashley, I could say that, Ashley. I agree with what she says. Wendy, I mean, she lives in 212, so who's talking to her? Like, what is this animosity towards Wendy that Karen has towards her? I don't get it. I mean, yeah, their issue came from, like, what, 2 seasons ago? It was a misunderstanding over something stupid, right? Like over something that Mia or Stacy or somebody has said, but it wasn't that serious. So I don't get why Karen is holding this grudge against Wendy, because then she was just like, oh, me and her, we could have a sit down. But Wendy knows exactly why I didn't give her a shout out at the reunion last season. Because Karen, she gave a shout out to everybody on this cast, to Mama Joyce, to Candy, I May Be Small, to Kyle Richards, to Erica Jane, to Garcelle, to all of the Real Housewives of Miami. She gave a shout out to everybody except Wendy. And I just don't understand what is the issue, unless Wendy, when she was committing fraud, you see where I'm going with this? What if they... Then did anybody see the preview to the reunion next week? How she comes on again with this whole Mother Teresa act of, Professor, shut the fuck up. Like, absolutely not. There's just no way again, it's always going to go back to a lady who crashed the car into a tree. It's not going to tell me that, you're better than me like this. Like, absolutely not. And I do feel for Wendy, though. Like, Wendy, it killed me to see her crying like that. Like, I get it. Yeah, she committed fraud, but honestly, I really don't give a fuck. But, it killed me when she was, like, looking down, and you just see the tears going down her face. Like, I don't like seeing her like that. And honestly, I know what Wendy did was wrong, and I said my things about Wendy this season or whatever. But after seeing her reunion dress, I'm so sorry. She needs to be free. Somebody else needs to take the fall. Like, give it to Charisse. Or Juan Dixon, or Robin. Like, take one of them. Let Wendy be on the show. Like, I'm sorry, like, Wendy's reunion dress, she should show up like that to court, and the judge should just be like, you know what? I'm sorry, like, that's a bad bitch right there. She can't be behind bars. You're free to go. Case dismissed. Like, it should be that easy, because Wendy, I mean, that reunion look, she says, if I'm going down with the ship, I'm going to go down with one last look. Like, she looks so, so good, but we'll get to that next week. And then some of these questionable looks. Monique, what is that? And then Jazzy. Jazzy, I just found out, just between me and you, I just found out that she blocked me on Twitter. Like, Jazzy, what did I do to you? Like, I love all of you. Like, I love all of them on the show. And, you blocked me, and then I had to go look at my tweets to see if I ever said anything bad about you. But, all I said was that, your relationship story sounded a little bit questionable. And like that you were a side chick or something like that. But I mean, that doesn't cause for you to block me. I mean, it's never anything personal with any of these women from any of the housewives. Like, none of them. I love all of them equally. But Andy asked her that she deserved to come back on the show. And she says that it's something that you earn, that she doesn't know if she's quite there yet. And honestly, as much as I want Karen back on the show, I feel like for the better of her journey, she's better off without it. At least for a year or so. And then you could come back. Because I just feel like Karen, up to this point, she has never really quite been honest with her life to this extreme, at least. Give or take, this interview and this whole situation. She hasn't really been this vulnerable up to this point, at least to me. She takes this whole Grand Dame title to heart. And she refuses to ever have a less than perfect image. Like, everything about her has to be a specific way. And anything less, she's not going to want that on camera, but now she's forced to. It's not like she gave us this situation willingly. She was forced into this because of the police footage and all of that, that came out and stuff. I feel like if none of that would have came out, she would have never said anything about it. She also says that her and Ray have discussed, if they can't go anymore, that he's okay with letting her go. And for me, I don't know, Karen, that's code word for, yeah, you better call somebody else, because obviously Ray, he's done with the situation. And I feel like they just outgrown each other, like I said earlier. And that's that. If Wendy doesn't go to jail and she comes back next season, then I take back everything I just said. And Karen, yeah, you do need to come back. But we'll see. Let me know what you all thought about this whole entire interview down in the comments. Do you think that Karen took ownership of, everything that happened to her? I don't know. I just hope, I'm hoping for the best for her, but we'll see. Let me know what you all thought about everything in the comments. Bye, everybody. Mwah.